figured let's do some Warhammer shit for a little while. Why not just make a little talk of it? But yeah, what's going on? How you guys doing? How's it going? Burial, the 94. 1994. Appreciate that. But yeah, we got a bunch of cool Warhammer shit out there. There's so much. There's so much of this shit out there. There's actually a lot of cool, like, little mini films and stuff someone made.
Stories of the brutal murder of the 2 police officers.
Like years ago, some old commercials. All sorts of stuff. All sorts of cool shit. Let's check out. I don't know, some of these. They had commercials for Warhammer. So weird. Is this like a real commercial or is this like a... Oh yeah, the audio's fucked. That's cool. We didn't see the whole thing. So this is like a Milton Bradley 40K game.
Space Crusade takes you into warp space to fight the force of chaos.
Brigade.
Deep in a parallel universe where nightmares are real. Space Crusade, the ultimate adventure game, where you must use all your skill and weaponry.
Plasma gun, dreadnought.
Plasma gun. I love that kid saying dreadnought.
Parallel Crusade, the ultimate adventure game, where you must use all your skill and weaponry.
Plasma gun, dreadnought.
Dreadnoughts.
Battle through infested starships and win the highest rank. The ultimate encounter is here. Space Crusade, now with a new adventure pack.
Now with a new adventure
These days,
pack.
kids are virtually
This is like a local Warhammer commercial, I think.
glued to a TV screen. It just doesn't have to be that way. Get into Games Workshop today and discover a world of interaction and creativity. At Games
this
Workshop,
really a
you
Games
collect,
Workshop
paint,
commercial?
and build figures and scenes for face-to-face tabletop strategic battles. It's social, it's creative, and it's fun. Stop by the Games Workshop at Sugarland Crossing and receive a free Battle for
Sugarland Crossing. That's sick. So this must have been made by like the store manager or
are
whatever,
virtually
the owner.
glued to a TV screen. It
This
just
is kind of funny though. I mean, that's clever.
doesn't have to be interaction.
Bring him, yeah. Don't let him watch TV. Bring him to the Warhammer store. That won't fuck up some of these kids. I mean, I love Warhammer, but
Creativity. At Games Workshop, you collect, paint, and build figures and scenes for face-to-face.
Some of these
tabletop
kids shouldn't be at the
strategic
store, let's
battles.
face it.
It's social, it's creative, and
the ones
it's
I've
fun.
met in my life.
Stop by the Games
Like, all right.
Workshop at Sugarland Crossing and receive a free Battle for McCraig paint set today. This offer ends soon. Don't delay. Games
It's
Workshop.
funny to
Collect,
hear it
paint,
with such
and
like
play.
a like bright tone. Here's another like Milton Bradley.
Space Crusade.
Oh, it's the same one. It's just like a little bit clearer.
Deep in a parallel universe where nightmares are real. Space Crusade, the ultimate adventure game,
It's
where you
the
must
same
use
one.
all your skill and weaponry
Plasma gun, dreadnought.
to battle through.
Dreadnought. That's cool on that. Hive Infestation, a trailer for an unmade fan film. This is like a fan film someone
In a
made.
bleak and savage future, the enemy lives among us.
Oh, 60 stream streak. Damn, dude.
Not open to negotiation.
Purify the city. Deploy here. The human warriors have come.
Who was like making this? Is there any other information?
But we must not let them jeopardize
looks like a copy of like an old VHS.
Brother,
Does look like someone put a lot of work into this. But it's like not really functional. It's like what is this shot?
Honor your chapter.
Is that a Luna wolf or a space wolf? What the fuck?
We are the Emperor's mailed fist.
I can't tell what's happening.
Kill them. Kill them all.
Every time I see that guy, I keep thinking of that one episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Look at this fucking guy.
Game Einstein.
I can just keep seeing this guy.
The speed of light divided by the speed of sound equals 5. 5 minutes left.
Weird ass episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? 5? Fighting a grenade? What the hell's happening?
I have
Sound
met
effect.
my enemy. It's an abomination.
Oh, that was kind of cool. Actually, like a full shot. Oh, there's more.
Deep in the nightmare world of the 41st millennium, there is only war.
This looks like from a game. Maybe not.
We captured their leader.
Does he carry the mark of chaos?
Is it an orc? Why? When would they ever take an orc hostage? I feel like that would never happen. Those do look sick, though.
Destroy them.
Destroy them. Yeah, orcs are just Cockney accents, right? Yeah. It's not an ad, it's a fan film. Or it's a trailer for it. I mean, it is a big Warhammer ad, I guess.
Traitor.
Chaos Marine. Word bearer.
Blood for the blood god.
Hey, you didn't say skulls. Is that it? That's it. Skulls for the Skull God. That's a World Eater. Are the Word Bearers and the World Eaters the same thing, or are they two different chapters? What do the Word Bearers become, or they just stay the Word Bearers? It's just Chaos United. Here's the Astartes like full animation. I think we've watched this before, but yeah, but what were they originally, like, before they became heretics? Like, the Word Bearers, always the Word Bearers? I guess there's only a few that actually changed, like, their names. So which ones changed? Like the Luna Wolves became the Sons of Horus, right? What else? Were they the only ones that changed their chapter name? So this guy does work for GW now, right? Like, he just does animations for them. It always reminds me of Skyrim when I see that fucking mask. Yeah, the bolters look great. And then the Sons of Horus became the Black Legion. I think I'm gonna start up a Night Lords kill team when that comes out. Into the Night Lords lately. So this is just like a ship full of heretics, right? Just Imperial Guard heretics, basically, it looks like. Heavy artillery platform. Smoke clearing out like that. Like, what were they hoping to do? I don't understand. Well, like, obviously not die, but Yeah, I just wonder if they're like going somewhere though. You guy's eyeball blew up. Angron. Logar. Yeah, I still don't know all the Primarchs that well, even though I've been into it for so long. Angron, Big Red Man? No, that's Mag something. I don't remember his name. That's just Magus, okay. Yeah, I mean, I started reading the Horus Heresy Black Library series, but obviously there's like 50 of them. I don't remember seeing this part. I don't remember ever seeing like a big man. What the fuck? Wait, so are these Grey Knights or what? Like, what chapter even is this? It's just a random Space Marines. The Grey Knights do they even have any like just basic ass fucking Space Marines? Or they're all just like fucking demon hunters and stuff. There's so many 40K books now. I think there's like hundreds. Yeah, I think Grey Knights are mostly like made up of Marines from other chapters, right? I like the tentacles. I do remember this part. Yeah, all Space Marines have like 2 extra organs or something like that. And other chapters have like whole ass new organs in addition to that. This is the Stardies project. Here's a link to it. He's making a new series. I love that. That one frame is so fucking cool. It makes me think of like, I don't know. In some of the lore, they talk about how like the Emperor went out and like met the Chaos Gods originally and like made a deal with them in the before times or whatever. It just kind of reminds me of something like that. Some of those like pictures and sights in there. It's cool. Super Dark Souls too. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about Dark Souls is stuff like this and like the new finger ruins and shit like that. That's like what it's all about. Well, Elden Ring, I guess. Yeah, check it out. Cool animation. They've got another one called Morning Star. Is it 40K stuff or is it like it's about the devil? I don't know a lot about Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar, I feel like, is the one that I know the least about. I love Warhammer Fantasy. I guess it's the same thing. I think the Emperor is big, but he's not that big. Like, the Emperor is big. The Primarchs are a little bit bigger. Or smaller, rather. And then the Primarchs Marines are like smaller than them. Yeah, I don't exactly love the setting of Age of Sigmar. I don't like how it's not in like a terrestrial place. It's like a realm. I don't know why they had to do that. I really like the world of Warhammer Fantasy. And that it's like our planet. I always like that. This is just cool in general. Yeah, I have to do more looking into Age of Sigmar. I definitely like the armies. I love all the armies, honestly. I just don't know if I like it. Just seemed I have to get a better grasp of what the deal is with the lore. Because it doesn't hit for me exactly. Yeah, I love the dwarves airships in Age of Sigmar. It's fucking sick.
Acknowledge. Turning to engage. Good hunting.
The Osirich or whatever, like the Bone Samurais. Fucking sick. There's a lot of cool armies. Yeah, I've always been a big Skaven fan. Bone Reapers. They remind me of Jinro a lot too, in particular. I mean, everything with red eyes and Stormtrooper helmet is Jinro, kind of, but.
Passing through execute defense lines. Mean to counter.
Remind me of like Mark IV armor, kind of. Oh yeah, that's so Shinro. That's sick. Yeah, this is like someone's made up world. This isn't 40K. It's just really similar. Look at the guns. Oh, that was dope. A little bit more. Yeah, the audio is really good. Yeah, this looks sick. How long ago did this come out? 8 months ago. So you're saying it's the same guy who made the other animation? Or is it someone different? Either way. Really dope. There's quite a few. Another one just popped up. Let's just watch this. I don't know what the fuck this is. Oh, the car skins. Caskins. He changed the name to Morningstar. Is this actually... Okay. That looks a little weird. I mean, just the parts coming out. And I remember when Battlefield Goliath was the thing too. I wish they'd bring back something like that. These fucking gothic ass spaceships. Like on the tabletop. They were so fucking sick.
Our mission is clear, and our objective is crucial. We
Yeah,
have been
Crimson
tasked
Fists are dope.
with infiltrating the sinister abyss of the Cardinal's dominion.
I love their
putting
color.
an end to his reign of heresy and corruption. This is a semi-covert operation. You all have been implanted with an inhibitor device to neutralize any psychic interference he might attempt. Our mission is not just a swift kill. We must ensure his influence is eradicated. We'll maintain open comms channel for coordination, as we will be divided on two fronts. The Emperor's light guides us, and we stand as his avenging angels. This is a crusade of righteousness, and the fate of this mission rests on our shoulders.
The Vengeance of Terra. Oh yeah, that Crimson Fist picture of them all up top and what's his name with his big ass hands. That's a cool picture. They all have like Italian ass sounding names, right? It's one of my favorite things about the flavor of the chapters. Like the Blood Angels and stuff have this like gothic theming to their naming conventions and stuff like that, compared to a lot of others where it's like, yeah, like Spanish, Portuguese. It's so cool.
Unidentified object on a rapid descent trajectory, sector B776, likely hostile.
Armature class! Armature class!
Systems online. Proceeding to engage. Target acquired.
Damn, that guy got smashed. Blasting? I don't know. I feel like it's in so many things. Even Star Wars.
Engaging armor.
Now at 5, engaging marked target. Keep tight formation and approach with caution. Fox 1, out. Armature neutralized.
Push forward!
They're breaking through!
Ugly piece of shit!
I can't tell who the heretics are. I guess the guys, the spike helmets. Oh yeah, the guys with the chaos symbols on their stuff.
You are nothing but a pathetic pawn! Your so-called emperor is a rotting corpse on a throne of lies!
Yeah, that's true. You just can't tell. This is such a Warhammer. That's like the whole point.
Commander. We've reached the designated position. Our armored battalion was highly successful in bringing down the anti-air emplacements, although a recent aerial bombardment campaign has had a negative effect on their main ammo depot. The facility is directly in sight, but the shield barrier is active.
Relay our demolitions team and get a Cyclops into the rear trench line immediately. They're our ticket past that shield barrier. Once they breach it, detonate the charge to take out the barrier and the nearby ammo depot. The explosion from the facility is our gateway to the Cardinal's location. Once we get in, we take them out and go home.
That's why I started reading the Horus Heresy stuff, because, I don't know, the Holy Crusade and like other human empires that they like encountered. It's just really interesting to read about.
This is radio operator Farah. I read you, Sergeant.
Farah, we need those remote-controlled Cyclops tanks deployed immediately. You're the only way we're getting past that shield
Another like
barrier without
Xenos
suffering major losses. I need to confirm with you that there is at least a single tank left behind enemy lines. Is that clear?
Copy that. Signal is recovered and tanks are en route.
I mean, it's basically Dune in a lot of ways. It's just Dune with layers. More layers.
Make preparations to initiate the reactor cores on the Dreadnought. If there's even a hint of a breach in our shields, alert the High Cardinal at once.
It's like a more low fantasy Dune, I would say, in a lot of ways. Just the world. Like a darker, more low fantasy Dune.
Cyclops in position.
Detonating.
We're approaching the Cardinal. Stay vigilant.
In the cold embrace of the void, we find true warmth. In the deafening silence, we hear the whispers of the war.
Yeah, I just mean mostly the abomination intelligence stuff. Like that's such a crucial part of 40K, I feel like, is
Chaos cares not for your past,
the Empire
your
rejecting
titles or your loyalties.
AI and
all that matters now is your desire.
needing psychers to do deep space dives and stuff.
You stand on the threshold of enlightenment, ready to take the first step into an abyss that will reshape your very
Right, I was actually reading that
sacrifices will be made
thing where they found like a big glass fucking planet, basically. I don't know. They don't know who made it, but it was like the proto Golden Throne. And like they're experimenting on it. And the navigators, they had to like keep it a secret from the navigators because they actually do control like a part of the Empire and shit.
No doubt.
Because without them, they wouldn't be able to go anywhere.
Of pain and suffering, you will find strength.
Yeah, it's like a little bit like Dune,
the depths of despair,
Navigator Guild.
Discover a newfound purpose. For the weak shall wither, but the chosen shall rise. Let the past be consumed by the flames of the warp. For tonight, you will be reborn!
He reminds me of a mix between a Goomba and fucking Dennis Hopper from the Mario movie. It goes back even farther than the 90s. But not like canon as much. And we got Chaos Space Marines. It was all right. It wasn't as interesting, but. So here's what I saw today that got me thinking about it. Someone in here, we were talking about Mordheim the other day. And I didn't realize that there was like a resurgence of Mordheim. Now I want to get into it. Subliminal trailer. I don't think I've seen that.
I recently traveled to Chicopee, Massachusetts to take part in Under the Dice Fest, a 2-day celebration of one of the greatest games ever made.
This looks so fucking fun.
It was an event like...
Dude, Mordheim was the best. This is what got me... This is like the first one I played, really.
No other. Filled with beautiful terrain, incredible minis, good people, music, and all kinds of other fun.
This looks like so
cool. It represented
cool.
what happened when the community not only keeps an old game alive, but takes it to the next level. This is the second annual New England Mordheim Open, Under the Dice Fest.
Are you going to this?
I drove down to Chicopee.
I hope there's a Mordheim scene in Portland.
Braving the long journey from my home in Toronto, Canada, to get to Chicopee, which was a long drive, but allowed me to bring a full table.
Dude, Mordheim is so fun.
If you've been watching this channel a while, you'll probably know some of my Mordheim terrain, as I've posted tutorials and videos on this channel about it for years. I did, however, make an extra piece just for this event. It wasn't finished.
It's funny because Chicopee is actually where
first night, I met up with
I
some
grew up,
friends
kind
and
of.
did some last-minute painting to get it ready for the table. Although it was last minute, I figured it was better to get something done than to
My
leave
entire,
it unrealized. With some paint on my model, I
side,
headed
one side
back
of
to
my
the hotel
family
to
is
rest
from that
because the
area.
event started bright and early the next day. The event was hosted in the
Oh my
local
God,
Legion.
I've been there.
As soon as I stepped in the venue, I was blown away.
That's sick.
People had traveled from far
The
and wide to
American
attend,
Legion,
and
are you
a huge
kidding me?
number of people brought incredible scratch-built tables to the event for everyone to enjoy. Look at some of these tables. I couldn't believe the incredible turnout. In the last few years, the level of talent and creativity in the community has gone through the roof.
This terrain is sick.
There were so many interesting and unique approaches to capturing the atmosphere of Mordheim. There were sewers, caves...
So if you don't know, Mordheim is basically a city set in Warhammer Fantasy in like the human empire. And it's just like a, it's a fairly big city. And it gets hit by a fucking weird ass meteor. One day, a green meteor crashes into Mordheim and it fucking wrecks everything and everyone gets mutated. And basically the meteor was made of warp stone, which is like kind of like how meteors crash here and have like weird materials that are not found anywhere else on the planet, only in those meteors. It's like the same thing. So people are going there and trying to get pieces of it because it's cool for magic stuff. People are like grinding it up and smoking it and snorting it. It's crazy.
Caves, shipwrecks, towers, walls,
so that's why it's like all
just so many
up.
Incredible corners of the city of Damned from the imaginations of dozens of passionate hobbyists. It was incredibly inspiring to see so many wonderful projects all in one place. As I mentioned, I brought an entire table of my own terrain as well. Some of you may recognize some of the pieces I've made on this channel. It was really fun getting it set up and seeing how it contrasts and stacks up with the incredible other tables in the room. Whenever I bring my warband anywhere, I bring a model ship, but there wasn't really a good place to set it up on my table. But I got talking to the guy with the table right next to me, and he had a perfect little harbor area where my ship and dock felt nicely at home.
Yeah,
it
a
was
bunch
really
of zombie
cool seeing
treasure
them on another table, just fitting in so well. I had a great time walking around the venue, chatting with people about their projects. I got a ton of incredible ideas and learned a bunch of new techniques as well. It was almost overwhelming, really.
That looks sick.
One of my personal favorites was the table brought by Tyler from Planet Piss. Mordheim is most often played on a 4-foot by 4-foot board, but Tyler chose to make a really dense 2-foot by 2-foot board, with one quarter dominated by a gigantic ruined library.
Basically, everyone's a mercenary or an addict
Inside
or
the library,
trying
the
to like
shelves
get
and
warp
tables
stone
were
for their
covered with
own
books,
nefarious
scrolls, and
purposes.
curios, and
A
Tyler
lot of
even modeled
mercenaries
tiny
getting hired by
rule
like
books sitting
wizards.
discarded on the
They're like,
floor
go and
where
get me
others
some
had thrown
cool
it away.
rocks.
The main floor was wallpapered with tarot cards, giving them a really interesting and sophisticated look. But my favorite detail of all had to be on the outside, where Tyler had set up a system of zip lines that players could use to zip from building to building. Really fantastic work.
Well, the ropes are cool.
To be honest, I probably would have been happy just looking at boards all weekend, but there was a 3-round tournament to play. So, the matchups were drawn randomly, And in my first matchup, I ended up getting paired up against my friend Dylan, who's one of the creators of Cauldron, which is an exciting new skirmish game that I've never played but have built a board for. So,
he's got cracked.
Cauldron is an orc and goblin based skirmish game, so naturally Dylan brought an orc warband. I'd originally planned on bringing a Bretonnian warband, but ended up bringing my faithful Estalians. We played on a table centered around what I've been calling the Square of the Kneeling Man. I was so excited that I didn't film too much of it, but I did get this moment of a jumping charge from my captain onto an orc that's
bring him out of prison. Nice.
That was pretty cool. Mostly Dylan brought his orcs into the middle, and I shot him to bits, and I ended up winning. Nice. By the way, if you're ever traveling with miniatures, a great way to ensure that they arrive intact is to magnetize their bases. I use magnets from today's sponsor, the Magnet Baron. The Magnet Baron makes a wide range of high-quality magnets, and you can see how just one magnet on the bottom of the base is enough to
So how are people making their warbands? Just like
jostling and jiggling. The Magnet Baron's whole website is tailored to miniature wargamers and their use cases. So
what
it's
are people
really easy
using?
to find
Like
what you're
Age of
looking
Sigmar stuff?
for. So go check them out and get yourself some. Thanks Magnet Baron for sponsoring this video.
Just put them on square bases.
In my second match, I played against a really cool Cult of the Possessed. It was full of brilliantly painted Slanesh models with some lovely details. My favorite was these two minotaurs wearing these hot pink leather harnesses. We played a breakthrough scenario where my opponent had to run off my table edge to win.
Yeah, there's a lot of
with
old
the volume of shooting
Empire
weapons
units
I had,
here.
it was a tough matchup for my opponent. After a well-fought attempt, my opponent bottled out, opting to save some strength in his warband for the third match.
Yeah, I just mean like how are people getting it now? I see a lot of like circular bases too.
In the final match, my boys had to assault
few.
an undead warband in the center of a ruined outskirt. My two prior victories had earned me enough gold to hire an ogre, who distinguished himself by leaping off a ledge onto a dog, but Cole's hideous vampire was too much for my beleaguered adventurers,
That's sick.
and they ended their journey in the City of the Damned with a crushing defeat. Overall, I went 2-1, which I can't
That
complain
looks like
about at
Fear
all
and
because I had
Hunger
a
or
blast.
something. That looks really cool.
With the tournament finished,
what's cool
all the
about Mordheim, I
participants
guess.
laid out their warbands for everyone to look at and vote for their favorite. The lighting conditions weren't perfect for filming, but I'll show you a few of my favorites. One of the coolest things about seeing everyone's models was the incredible
that is a
diversity of
sick
the entries.
warband.
When it was first released,
See, that's
there were
what I
only
mean.
a few warbands you could play as, but over the years the community has added rules for dozens of others, and players can take that one step further by creating other factions that simply use the rules of one of the existing warbands. This gives hobbyists immense creative freedom to make nearly anything they want, and it's awesome to see.
Oh my god, that's
Some of the
sick.
participants use newer games
Fucking
Workshop imagery they
Midsummer.
want, and it's awesome to see.
A Midsummer like Chaos band, or are they Sisters of Sigmar? That's a clever idea. They even got a Wicker Man. That's so cool.
Some of the participants used newer Games Workshop miniatures, slotting in characters from the existing Age of Sigmar and Underworlds ranges, while others brought original models, rare and long since discontinued.
Dude, I saw that.
It's cool to see others brought original
This
models.
exact set of Sisters of Sigmar on eBay, $300 for the original Mordheim set. Now, I don't know what happened to my original. I had a Skaven warband from 20 years ago. I don't know if they're still in my room back on the East Coast somewhere. I hope I have them somewhere.
Rare and long since discontinued.
I don't know what happened to
It
them.
was cool to see some of the old casualty models even made.
But yeah, I had a Skaven
Others
warband
still
for
brought
Mordheim.
warbands of entirely
When the game
third-party
came
miniatures, or kit bashed together weird and original creations.
I had the
There
big
were all
box set
sorts
and
of
stuff
painting
too.
styles on display too, from grim and gritty to crisp. and
Actually, I
classic.
don't know if I got the big
Some
box
people
set.
even had some incredible display bases ready to place their minis on. Personally, I really enjoyed how
Yeah,
this
Underworld
one
has
dwarf warband was displayed in a tight formation.
models,
I can
too.
just imagine them marching through the ruins.
I imagine they would work for this pretty.
These
pretty
treasure
much.
hunters
Why
from
not?
Araby in particular caught my eye, with their bright
bring in an
silks
ad.
and exotic weapons. These gorgeous classic dwarves were one of my favorites as well. First prize, though, went to
Yeah,
this
classic
Marauders of
dwarves.
Chaos warband, which featured a wicker man and a bunch of warrior.
So they're Marauders of Chaos. That's so fucking cool. That's such a cool way to do that. And they're actually like colorful. It's like almost like a wood elf color scheme going on. It's sick.
maidens dressed for some sort of unholy soul.
A lot of them are Underworld models. I'm gonna go get some and just fucking start experimenting because those are cheaper too. A lot of the Underworld's stuff that you can get is like seems like it's like heavily discounted sometimes. I have pretty much just 40K stuff. I haven't really got a lot of fantasy and Age of Sigmar stuff. This was like during the pandemic. I kind of started, collecting again. But now that I'm in a place that kind of has a lot of Warhammer going on, I figure I might as well get back into it, play some with people. But yeah, I like the size of like underworlds and stuff. It's like you're not spending $1,000 on an army at least. There's a Mordheim club in London. Yeah, there's a website. It's called Broheim, and that's like where all the rules are hosted and stuff like that, and has all the official bands and the unofficial ones. There's like even like Dark Elves. Those are all unofficial. I don't know how it works. It just depends on who you're playing with, I guess, but pretty fucking sick. Pretty fucking sick, man. I'm just going to take a break as our ads are coming through. We'll take a short break for a minute, and we'll be right back. So no one misses any of the Warhammer stuff. All right, let's continue.
Solstice ritual. The original concept, the creativity, and the attention to detail, and all the beautiful little elements for your eyes to find made this a well-deserved choice for number 1. So cool. Now with the tournament done, the weekend was far from over. As evening set in, people took the opportunity to have some casual pickup games, and some live music was set up as well.
Yeah, this is so fucking sick.
There's something so sick about
this
playing
wizard
fantasy
playing
board
the
games
sim.
while Dungeon Synth plays live in the background. Day 2 was a lot less structured.
Oh,
and
no.
The venue was opened up for people to play all kinds of opportunity to have
Here, we'll go
a
back
bunch
a
of
few minutes.
These treasure hunters from Araby in particular caught my eye, with their bright silks and exotic weapons. These gorgeous classic dwarves were one of my favorites as well. First prize, though, went to this Marauders of
Those
Chaos
dwarves
warband,
are so
which
round.
featured a wicker man and
Oh,
a
they
bunch
even got
of
Black
warrior
Phillip
maidens
in
dressed
there.
for
Holy
some
shit.
sort of unholy solstice ritual.
Black Phillip is like the
original
centerpiece.
concept, the creativity, and the attention to detail, and all the beautiful little elements for your eyes to find made this a well-deserved choice for number 1. So cool. Now with the tournament done, the weekend was far from over. As evening set in, people took the opportunity to have some casual pickup games, and some live music was set up as well.
The cool thing about Mordheim too is that you could play like a campaign. So like you get through one battle, you get experience and gold, and you have to like roll for your character. So if you took an injury on one guy and he got wounded and taken out of battle, you have to roll on like a 100-sided dice, like what happens to him. So like 1 out of 100 different things can happen. So it's like your warrior get his arm cut off, so he gets 1 less attack, or like 1 less ballistic skill or some shit. Or like your character fell into some wordstone puddle and he mutated. Now he has a tentacle coming out of his head or something. Yeah, it's really cool.
There's something
Yeah,
so sick about playing
Red
fantasy
Bard
board
or
games
whatever.
while Dungeon Synth plays live in the background. Day 2 was a lot less structured, and the venue was opened up for people to play all kinds of other war games. Some people played Marvel Crisis Protocol. I saw some people playing Hero Quest.
Oh, yeah, I wanna
Mike
get
was
Hero
playing
Quest.
a travel-sized version of Warhammer: The Old World made with tiny little 3D printed minis.
That's
The
funny.
Wire Brothers set up some games of their grimdark Vestarian setting, and I got the chance to play Flames of Orion, a streamlined
God,
mech
there's so many
fighting game
different
written
ones.
by
Oh,
my
that
friend
looks sick.
Steve. I really liked it. Within 30 minutes, I was able to read the rules, create a roster of mechs, and play a game. For many years now, I've convinced myself that I don't have the bandwidth
There's a
to get
church
into
on
indie
that.
games or any other game systems outside of the stuff made by Games Workshop. But
rolling
the fact that I was
cathedral.
able to play Flames of Orion so quickly and have so much fun kind of broke something in my mind. It turns out that a lot of smaller games out there actually have a much lower barrier to entry, which is something I can definitely get behind. Since this event, my friend Rory bashed together some mechs for me to use with Flames of Orion using traditional...
Dude. Fucking, what's his name? Silent Hill, man. Masahito? What the fuck is his name? Why am I forgetting his name? Pyramid Head guy. It's something Masahito, right? Yeah, Ito. Masahiro Ito, thank you. He does this is like his thing. All his minis are like so hemmed up and like, yeah, his acid buffer zone and stuff. I love the aesthetic of like putting the dirt on them, making them rusty. And that's the one thing I really like about his work. You could see the Silent Hill coming out in that almost like, I don't know, I just really appreciate that. Like seeing like the grimy mechs and stuff like that instead of it all just being like pristine. I love the way that looks. And I love like being able to experiment with that and like get a look you want. I don't know. That's something really cool. Like taking something that's already done and doing that to that is really neat.
mech bits and also some organic materials.
I love the way
I
that
put some
looks.
paint on them and I think they're awesome. Rory also accidentally sort of discovered my dark secret that I've been trying to hide from you guys.
And I've seen a few armies that people have done like that in 40K too, where they like made their army like muddy. It doesn't work for all of it. You know what I mean? You can go too far, I think, with it. But some of them I've seen where they made like all the Space Marines' feet like look like they were marching. You know what I mean? It's a minor detail, but it looks so fucking good. And I think it's bordering on like making minis for like movie scenes almost. You know what I mean? You're almost getting to the point where like, I don't know. That's like what they did for miniatures and movies in the 80s and stuff. I think that's really cool.
The channel, which is that I get extremely grumpy when I'm hungry. So here he is giving me a cookie. Very smart and thoughtful man, that Rory. By the way, if you think Into the Dice Fest looks cool, Rory is actually hosting an event somewhat like this pretty soon called Into the Dungeon Fest on August 3rd and 4th in Calgary, Alberta. It's going to have a Warhammer tournament, Magic the Gathering.
I didn't even know there was anything up there.
2, which is my friend Jeremy's game from Black Magic Craft.
A lot of Canadians love
I highly recommend you attend.
There's
Overall,
so many
Into the
Warhammer
Dice
channels
Fest
that
was
are
an
just
insanely
Canadian.
inspiring event. There was so much else going on all around.
I know,
too.
I'm making fun of
There
it
were
because
tattoo
it's so
artists
far
set
away.
up, tattooing flash designs on people. There was good food and drink, and there were lots of really cool vendors selling all kinds of treasures.
Like when I think of Canada, like in the borders of Canada, and then like just like the Arctic waste of the Northwest Territories, and like I don't know, like that's the end of the line, man. Like there's nothing else past there. That's it. Just like Steve is camping up there somewhere. That's it. Nothing else up there.
I really enjoyed flipping through some of the old tabletop
Oil
magazines and
refineries.
rulebooks, and I bought these really cool old
Tundra.
books from old game systems. Somebody even set up a really cool photo booth display so that people could get good photos.
Just
of their
imagine it being
warbands.
cold all
I wish
the
I had the
time.
presence of mind to put my guys on.
No, it's not. But
Oh well. There was also a giant kit bashing event where anyone and everyone could come pick through a huge assortment of old miniature bits to make some fantastic creations. There were long tables set up with glue, clippers, putty, and anyone interested just had at it at their own pace. There was everything from relatively
This
normal
fucking
dioramas
song I
to
hear in so
weird
many YouTuber
shark-like
channels.
creatures and giant walking mechs. I really enjoyed seeing all the wild and weird things that people made when given the freedom and time to just let their inner creativity come out. There was
Edmonton's
also
the
a
last
prize
city.
awarded for the best Mordheim table.
It's like the
And
wall.
winner was Blurs, whose table was incredibly cool and I unfortunately didn't get very good footage of, but it was a spectacularly grand and twisted vision of
Oh, that's
Mordheim
so cool.
that I'd never seen the likes of before. Blurs is an extremely talented and creative guy, and luckily he's got a YouTube channel that you guys can go check out. I'll link that below. I think he just posted a really cool Necromunda creation. I'm always really excited to see what he
I'd
has
like to
up
get
his
into Necromunda too a little
This
bit.
event was all hosted by the guys over at Hive Scum.
The Ash
specifically
Waste
Gage,
thing reminds
Steve,
me of
and
Mad
Paul,
Max.
who in addition to being great guys and talented hobbyists, have built an incredible community, not just in their local area, but online as well. I got a chance to hang out with so many cool people, some that I had met before, some who I knew from their work online, and some who I only just met. And this is the real story of the weekend. Mordheim is a game that hasn't been supported in any official capacity for nearly 2 decades. Without this community, Mordheim would just be another dead game. These days, people often talk about the ills of social media, and certainly living terminally online can have its downsides. I think many people struggle to some degree
the
over
tunnels
the past years
underneath,
with
it's
feelings
so
of
fucking
isolation
cool.
in the post-2020 world, where working remotely and stuff is more and more common. But if I've learned one thing over the past few years, it's that the internet.
I mean, that's a
makes it
piece you
extremely
work
easy
on
to
for
find
like
other
months.
people
You
who
sit
share
down and
your
do a little bit
extremely
every
niche
day.
interests. And that while internet friendships may seem artificial, when you meet up with your online friends in real life, it's abundantly clear that internet friends are real friends. Communities that are built online can and do translate extremely well to real life. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah, I would
So if
say
you're somebody
internet
who
friends
engages
is
with the
different
hobby
than
mostly
it was
online,
10 years ago.
That's great, and you should
People
keep
are
doing
way
that.
more of
But
themselves.
just know
than they
that
used
if you
to
ever
be.
want to venture out and meet up with some
Not
like-minded
everybody, but-
people, it can be a beautiful
I mean, these are all grown adults.
I want to give a huge thank
you know
you
what I
to
mean?
everybody who participated in this event.
You
for
should be able
being
to
so
figure
special,
out who you
and I
can
hope you guys enjoyed watching this
and
video.
shouldn't meet up with. In
Thanks
real
for
life
tuning in,
and stuff.
and we'll see you next time on Eric's Hobby Workshop.
Yeah, definitely. 16 years ago it was a fucking 16 years ago when you asked people where they met their partner, it would be like, we met each other at work. We graduated together. Now, when you ask people that, so many people have met online. It's completely flipped now. You know what I mean? Like, it's way different than it used to be with stuff like that. Completely different. There's a couple, like I said, I've gotten in and out of Warhammer stuff. A few different times. Another channel I really like is Goobertown Hobbies. I haven't watched him in a while.
Welcome to Goobertown Hobbies. My name is Brent. Today's video is meant as a resource for newer painters. It's a tutorial where I assume no
I really
prior
like this
knowledge,
guy's channel.
people, and have fun.
He just talks about
temperature
painting and
outside is
stuff.
warm.
It's like
Make
a good
sure
way to.
really
There's so
give the
much
spray
cool
can
information
a
out
good
there
shake.
about
The
how do I
goal
even
is
do
to
this.
build up some light dustings of paint on the
His
model.
his videos are so
Start
relaxing
the
too. I
spray
feel
away
like.
from the models and then sweep past the targets. Many light dustings is better than one heavy coat. Don't spray so much that actual liquid builds up on the models. A heavy buildup of paint can obscure details. Worse, the solvents in spray paint can dissolve model plastic and make things look melty. Okay, the next
Just
day,
like basic
grind
ass
only
fucking stuff.
intuitively or figures to their bases yet.
I don't know. This can be very relaxing.
Model.
That's neat.
And if I didn't like something, I could absolutely go and repaint it. I need to pay attention to my posture. For painting minis in general, you need
So if you like stuff like that, here's a link to that. Actually, here's a link to that last video too, because that one was really cool.
I recently traveled to Chicopee,
All right. I mean, there's a million other things. Here's an interesting
Many individuals have covered the vast lore of Warhammer in the Age of Sigmar,
This
fantasy,
goes from the very beginning.
and 30 and 40k setting, but very few have taken the time, at least that I'm aware of, to cover the story of Warhammer itself and the rise of Games Workshop. That might not be true at all, but at this point, I've taken the time to write out this whole script,
Even just the
and
beginning.
I'm kind of too scared to search
Kinda
YouTube to see if
interesting.
someone far more successful and talented than me has already done this, so I'm going to take the entirety of the credit for this extremely original idea. It's no secret that you all tend to really only get pushed the Warhammer content for whatever reason, and now that I'm a fully grown, self-sustaining adult, that means I've got bills to pay. So
Let's
I'm
just
going
talk
to
about
suck it up
Warhammer.
and appeal to my audience for once instead of making mediocre videos that no one seems to care about. It's gonna be a little ironic if this video doesn't end up doing well. But anyways, rambling aside, let's go back more than
We'll give him a
50
chance.
years ago to a time long ago, the 1960s.
The 60s in color.
Our story
Like
begins
90s
like many
footage.
stories, with some young kids meeting in school and growing to bond over similar interests. After moving back from Canada, a young boy named Steve Jackson would go on to meet a slightly older but still young boy named Ian Livingston at the Richmond grammar school for boys located in Cheshire, England.
Jesus.
The two would bond over mutual interest of board games, and through school would also meet another like-minded kid named John Peake. The trio would go on to become great friends, and after graduating high school and going off to college, would do their best to remain in contact and keep up with their board gaming traditions. After a while, though, they'd grown bored of the traditional board games at the time, like Monopoly, and so started to look to a new, more challenging game to play. Eventually, this led them to playing Diplomacy, a game that, as the name suggested, required a good amount of diplomacy, and speaking to other players to negotiate and battle their way through the events of World War I. Ian, funnily enough, would eventually meet a man who lived down the street named Don Turnbull. Don was also a big fan of Diplomacy and just so happened to publish a small magazine focusing around the game called Albion.
Axis and
Ian
Allies.
would end up drawing and assisting in other
I remember
items
playing
in the
that game
magazine
for, like,
before Don
10
eventually
hours.
called it quits after the 50th issue of the magazine. For Ian, though, Diplomacy was just the start of the journey to getting into more complex board games. The creators of Diplomacy had also produced a game called Stalingrad, which Steve and Ian both became big fans of. Stalingrad was a very complex game that required a large amount of strategy to win, and through this game would also become fans of the tabletop wargaming genre. After John, Steve, and Ian had all finished up their studies at their respective colleges, the trio would all unite again in London, moving into a shared flat together. During a late-night gaming session, the boys started discussing the idea of starting their own company, maybe making their own board games.
A board game?
There was inevitably some hesitation within the group.
I guess it makes sense that we got 40K's grimdark setting from this, but it's like a board game about Stalingrad. Like, don't get me wrong, I love, like I said, Axis and Allies is great, but I guess it's like removes you from like the immediate atrocities of like World War II and stuff. But it's like, yeah, it's a board game about stalemate and millions of people just fucking throwing themselves into a wall over and over again. Like, so fucked up. It's like one of the darkest things I could think about to make a board game for.
About starting a company, and for a while, it remained a fun yet unrealistic dream. But after Steve had landed himself a role as a reviewer for Games and Puzzles magazine, the group had regained.
I think 2 million people died in the Battle of Stalingrad. Like a loss of human life, like never on a scale like that ever before. Like, it's so insane.
Gained interest in the idea, and after taking a small loan from Steve's mom and a bit of brainstorming on a name, in January of 1975, the group would eventually start Games Workshop, a name that was only narrowly beaten out by close contenders such as
they've
Games
just got
Garage,
pounded into the
Synapse
ground.
Games, and my personal favorite, Gas Games. John was the craftsman of the group, helping to make finely crafted wooden boards for Go, Mancala, and other board games, all in the comfort of his own bedroom. Steve would be the financial manager, keeping track of payments and payments due for the company, and Ian would work to make the first rendition of the company's logo.
It is very weird to think about.
That's
why you shouldn't think about it, I think, that much, but like, still.
Shortly after this small production had been
I'm not
established,
saying
about a month
I
later,
don't
Steve and
like
Ian would
stuff like that. Like, I do. I like war games. You know what I mean? I always have. But yeah, I mean, it is something to think about. Like, wow, that's insane. But I think maybe it makes you more aware of how fucking insane it could be. You know what I mean? But nothing wrong with playing some tactical war games. We're not killing anybody.
Would work on setting up their own gaming magazine for Games Workshop called Owl and Weasel. The name, albeit a little bit odd, was the brainchild of Steve, with the intention being the games required the intelligence of an owl and the cunning sneakiness of a weasel. With the help of some old typewriters, Ian's previous experience helping with Albion magazine, and Steve's experience writing reviews for Game and Puzzles magazine, the pair were able to push out 25 issues of Owl
it's
and
like a
Weasel
way of
before
not
the magazine
forgetting,
would eventually
even if it
come
is
to an
something
end
that
in
we're having fun with.
1977. But this was not before the group would strike gold with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After attending a gaming convention, Steve and Ian would both attend a booth where a small group of individuals were playing what would later become known as a tabletop role-playing game. After watching with fascination, the pair would learn that the game was called Dungeons & Dragons. Interested to see where this might develop and hoping to play it at some point in the future, Steve wrote a short article about the game in one of their issues of Owl and Weasel. Shortly after, they received a package in the mail asking the magazine's authors if they might take the time to review this person's game. And upon opening the package, they realized they had received their very own early copy of Dungeons & Dragons from one of the game's creators itself, Gary Gygax. Steve and Ian would become huge fans of the game, so decided to order some copies to distribute for people across the UK. Gary would see these orders come in and would make Games Workshop an offer to have them as the European distributor of the product. After playing some games of D&D themselves, Steve wrote a review praising D&D and Alan Weasel, and over time they started to receive many orders for the game from eager Europeans hoping to get their hands on the game. Despite the success the company had, John didn't have much interest in the RPG aspect of tabletop gaming, and would decide to leave their company to focus on his real-life career in 1976,
so long, that
but
guy
still
just
keeping a
standing
good
there.
relationship with Steve and Ian.
Soccer
But
game or
now that the
something?
duo was seeing some real success and enthusiasm with what they were distributing, Steve and Ian decided to host their own small gaming convention called Game Day. The first Game Day would go on to be successful, and so the group decided to host another Game
So
Day in
British
1977, as well as a D&D Day only a month after Game Day 2 due to the rising popularity of the tabletop RPG. These events would go on to be massively successful for the company, with the events easily breaking the capacity of...
Another reason why stuff like this is so interesting to me, like growing up, like I got into D&D from daycare. Like the guy who would watch us at daycare was like, hey, you guys want to play D&D? Or like we had like Dragon Strike that I brought in one time, which is like baby D&D. And like he played a fucking campaign with us when we were like 8 years old or something in daycare. It wasn't real D&D, but like he took a big piece of parchment paper and put it on the table, taped it down, and he drew the map for us like as we played. It's one of my favorite memories. And it was only one time. It was only one session, and half the kids were too stupid to even kind of get into it. But like the kids who did get it, we were all a little. Some of us were a little older, but like it was a daycare that I got dropped off at over the summer because both my parents worked full time, and so we over the summers until I was old enough. This is before I was old enough to like stay on my own. We would get dropped off at daycare basically the whole summer, and that's like we played D&D. It was like fake D&D, but it was still fun. And but then I lived in the middle of nowhere, kind of in Connecticut, so like we had one hobby shop in town, and I actually was friends with the kid whose dad owned it. But it was still, I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and it was hard to get down there. So I did get into it through them. And like even when the hobby shop went out of business, he would organize Warhammer games for us to play and stuff like that. And he's the one who got us into Gorka Morka, actually. He did a Gorka Morka campaign with us and some Mordheim and stuff like that. But also when you're young and you don't have a car, it's really impossible to do that kind of stuff, like on a consistent basis. So, but I just read Warhammer, the magazines over and over and over again. And they used to send out big giant catalogs. You know how they used to send out J.C. Penney catalogs? Like basically Games Workshop sent out like a bunch of those back in the day, and they were dope. And it was basically just like their entire miniature range in a magazine, all painted, with an ordering form in the back. That's how you would buy this stuff if you didn't have a Games Workshop store near you, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They don't do that anymore. It's all online, obviously. But yeah, they would send out the huge magazine that just covered the entire range of Warhammer miniatures and like the story and lore. Basically, like they were sending you codexes in the mail for free. It was sick.
The venues they were held in. In April of 1977, Steve and Ian believed they needed to move towards producing a more professional newsletter and looked at others in the industry who had previously done the same, and so decided to rebrand their newsletter into a more professional magazine, marking the end of Alan Weasel. In its place, Steve and Ian would launch a new magazine the same year called White Dwarf. The name derived from the title given to a dying star, as well as serving as a nod to the popular short and stocky fantasy race. White Dwarf, unlike Alan Weasel, would instead be a paid subscription service, as they needed money to not only increase the quality of the production, but to hopefully expand Games Workshop as a company. Although initially seen as a giant gamble for the company, in the end, the first edition of White Dwarf would sell out with 6,000 units sold,
and stuff like that.
marking a huge
That really
success
got
for
me into
GW.
Warhammer
To help
too.
in the production of White Dwarf, Games Workshop would hire its first outside employee, a man by the name of Trevor Graver, and from there, partnerships and employees.
I remember getting the White Dwarf issue when Necrons were announced. And they came at the preliminary rules for Necrons and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, they're these fucking robots that basically once you kill them, every turn they can roll, dice. And if they hit 6, they can all come back to life. And it was like, holy shit, these guys are way too powerful. And the battle report was just sick. I don't know.
Employees will only continue to grow and become a part of Games Workshop. GW would eventually open up their own retail store in March of '78, located right at 1 Dowling Road over in West London, with the previously mentioned Trevor Graver becoming not only their first employee, but also GW's first ever store manager. That same year, a man named Brian Ansel would propose a business agreement with Steve and Ian. Brian was the man behind a miniature production company called Asgard Miniatures, and Games Workshop had been customers of his for a good time now, selling many of his miniatures through their new magazine. After popping over to London to meet with the pair, Brian would suggest a new partnership in which he was offering to make exclusive miniatures for Games Workshop to sell. Steve and Ian were thrilled at this idea, and so a partnership was forged, and throughout 1978,
they weren't working like normal office jobs.
So much, in fact, that Steve and Ian wanted to start their own new company for miniature production, with Brian by their side. With a bit of negotiation, Steve, Ian, and Brian would all have equal stakes in a brand new company that would launch on December 28th of 1978, Citadel Miniatures. Games Workshop is now able to start pumping out models for role-playing games like hotcakes. This allowed for Games Workshop to not only profit off the European distribution of D&D, but also make it so they could easily profit from their miniatures by selling them directly alongside their distributed D&D merchandise. Going into 1979 though, GW knew they could really only afford to do this for so long since they didn't own D&D, they just held the distribution rights, and their initial contract had actually expired in 1978, but TSR, the company who owned the rights to D&D, had let Games Workshop continue to distribute the game throughout most of 1979. But this only went on for a short while before TSR would finally state that they didn't want to renew the distribution rights for Games Workshop.
Is TSR
In fact,
just
after many
Wizards of the
conversations
Coast
with
now?
Gary Gygax, it seems Gary and TSR wanted to buy Games Workshop and merge it under TSR. Steve and Ian were extremely apprehensive about selling Games Workshop, and despite a personal visit from their good friend Gary to talk things over, GW would deny this merger, and from there, the exclusivity rights to the European distribution of D&D had ended. This, however, didn't really stop too much, at least at the moment. Because Games Workshop had held the exclusive rights for European distribution of D&D for its initial years of success, that also meant that they still had an almost monopolistic hold on D&D in Europe, despite technically now having the potential.
Yeah, that's
for
almost like a
competition by
tragedy,
other
honestly.
distributors. But Steve and Ian knew this wouldn't last. They needed something that could serve as their own success.
If fucking
something that would be
Hasbro
the
owns them,
equivalent
maybe
of
it's
Dungeons and
not. I don't
Dragons
know.
for Games
Maybe it's
Workshop.
good for
And so, as
production.
1980 passed and GW pushed out a variety of board games and would eventually open up a second official retail store in Manchester, Steve and Ian would contemplate on where to take the company next. It was around this time too that video games had started to truly gain popularity on the gaming scene, pushing board games out of the way to make room for a brand new platform to play games on. As excited as Steve and Ian were about the future that video games painted, they also knew that they served as a potential giant rival to their business. In early 1981, Steve and Ian would be taken off guard when Brian, their co-founder of Citadel, resigned from the company. Due to budgetary restrictions, Brian felt limited and annoyed that more money was being invested into Games Workshop instead of Citadel, and so would leave abruptly. This, however, wouldn't last long, as Brian's girlfriend, Diane Lane, stayed with Games Workshop after Brian's departure and had been hired as office manager for Citadel. This allowed for Diane to set up a negotiation with Brian and Games Workshop, but he was hired back on in 1982. Now back with the company, Brian had been brainstorming ideas of how to next expand Games Workshop after the unfortunate end of the D&D business relationship, and of course to combat the new upcoming competition from video games. He had an idea, and to help him with its creation, he hired Richard Halloway and Rick Priestley, two friends who had previously worked together on the 1978 game Reaper, and some other war games. With this previous experience as well as some inspiration from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, Brian, Richard, and Rick would work together to flesh out Brian's idea, and as the year went on, Runehammer, as the game was currently called, began to truly start to shape into something special for Citadel. To avoid confusion with another game that GW published called RuneQuest, the game's name was changed to Warhammer, or sometimes called Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and would be officially launched in May of 1983. Upon its release, its initial 3,000 first edition copies sold out almost immediately, prompting a huge demand for more. Now, Warhammer in its early stages was not like Warhammer that we know today. Because of the growing popularity of D&D at this time, Warhammer initially tried to do a blend of not only a war game, but a role-playing game as well. This is widely bashed on by critics as the role-playing system did not feel nearly as interesting as the tactics of the actual wargame itself. The game was also heavily criticized for the many errors that existed in their rulebooks, but overall the game itself was viewed positively. Back at Games Workshop, however, things were going a little bit less than ideal. 2 months prior, Brian Ansel, the current managing director of Citadel, who we've previously mentioned,
like explaining something like Warhammer, someone's like, well, it's like D&D, but you control a whole army. And also, I don't know. There's just battles. There's nothing else, actually. I don't know. That's why I like the systems that have like campaigns that are ongoing.
Wanted to buy the rest of the shares of the company from Ian and Steve. This negotiation lasted 2 months up until the release of Warhammer, in which negotiations would stop and Brian would yet again leave the company. Later this year, the video game crash would occur, causing many companies to die off and millions of units of games to almost entirely be untouched. It was a massive financial loss for the industry, and it was directly caused by a huge oversaturation of poor games on the market. You might make the mistake of viewing this as a positive thing for Games Workshop since they were focused on board games, but because Steve and Ian had seen the potential of video games, they began to distribute game cartridges for systems like the Atari as well. This meant when the crash finally hit around Christmas of that year, GW was sitting on a massive overstock of almost worthless video game cartridges. As admitted by Ian in his book Dice Men, a resource that has been incredibly helpful for this video, I highly recommend it if you're still here at this point. Games Workshop survived thanks to our hobby game sales and the determination of retail operations manager Bob Malin to return a lot of overstocks to their manufacturers. Bob Malin was able to brutally negotiate with these companies so that they took all of their now useless stock back, making sure Games Workshop did not actually have to pay for all of these unsold copies. So yeah, shout out to Bob. Despite quite possibly narrowly avoiding the death of the company and the unfortunate video game crash, 1984 would be a great year for Games Workshop. Although I couldn't find exactly when specifically he came back, from everything I've read, Brian Ansel was yet again back at Citadel. Warhammer would also see its first expansion, Forces of Fantasy. This expansion for the first edition of Warhammer would resolve a large amount of errors and issues that plagued the first edition rules and was positively received by critics. Not only would Warhammer's first expansion drop this year, but second edition would launch this year as well, adding in new types of units, effects like reserves, flying, artillery, as well as improving the rules of the game yet again, much to the approval of critics. Despite the video game crash of '83, Ian and Steve doubled down on releasing their own video games, and GW continued to see success with sales for games that were essentially computer ports of their own board games on consoles. Outside of GW, Ian himself was able to work on his own game, Eureka, a mystery adventure game that would boast a £25,000 prize handed out by the publisher Domark for the first person to complete the game. This publishing deal was only made possible by the success of Steve and Ian's Choose Your Own Adventure style book series called Fighting Fantasy, as their most recent book in the series, Death Trap Dungeon, was the #1 book on the children's best-selling book list. In fact, Ian and Steve were having giant success with their book series. It was a phenomenon across the globe, to put it lightly. They would lead Games Workshop during the day and then continue to work on their book series through the night. Understandably, this was having a pretty big strain on the both of them, as it seemed as if they were almost constantly working. For this reason, in 1985, after Brian's annual tradition of threatening to leave the company, Steve and Ian would make him an offer to have him stay. They were seeing themselves quickly losing steam to handle both of their businesses and felt that Brian would be the right one to trust to continue the success of Games Workshop. In 1986, Brian would be handed the keys to Games Workshop, with the original founders Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone stepping down to serve only as advisors on the board of directors after growing the company from the ground over the past 10 years. With Brian now at the helm of GW, Games Workshop would start to shift drastically away from the board game distribution and quadruple down on Warhammer. 1986 would see the release of two brand new game systems, Blood Bowl and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Blood Bowl was a violent hybrid of football and rugby, featuring the races present in the current Warhammer Fantasy setting. A bit of a different take on fantasy football, if you ask me. Designed by Jervis Johnson, the game featured a variety of teams based around the races of the fantasy setting, duking it out on a cardboard grid. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay would be the other title drop, and, well, the name is pretty self-explanatory. It's a fantasy role-playing game set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, so yeah, it's like D&D. Behind the scenes, Rick Priestley, one of the creators of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, was cooking up a sci-fi game system, and after teasing it throughout 1986, would release this new system in 1987. Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. Little did Games Workshop know at the time, but this game would completely change the company and propel it into success. Although Rogue Trader was far different than what we would eventually see as the foundational features of 40K, even before its release, we would see the first ever version of a Space Marine, which
back when Space Marines all had the bird armor. What mark is that? Like
and
Mark
we would
3?
then, with the release of the game, see some of the earliest versions of certain races and factions we would come to love, as well as some that we definitely didn't. You know, like, whatever happened to Piscian Warrior? The game itself, even setting and theme-wise, was very different from what we would now know to be the canonical ideas of 40K and the races and factions existing in it. The actual
What
game
the fuck
system
are those
was
guys?
initially more of an RPG
Mark
and would
6
only later be
course.
built upon to shift more towards the tactical war game that we know today. In the following years would see both Warhammer systems be updated and expanded upon with new rules, which were introduced in White Dwarf. In fact, many updates began to be dished out with White Dwarf, and as they were, we would see the lore of 40k truly begin to establish, and the rules for certain game systems continue to be updated. In 1988, we'd also see the release of Adeptus Titanicus, a
Whatever
game
happened to the
developed
Legion
again
of
by
the
Jervis
Damned?
Johnson
They just
that
gone?
launched Titan Legions in an epic
So
or
cool.
shrunken down scale to the 40k setting for the first time. 1989 would be the year for the first ever edition of Space Hulk, a game taking an upgraded version of Space Marines, the Terminators, and pitting them against the Tyranids, more specifically their Gene Stealers. This would all take place in narrow corridors and would be fairly fondly remembered by the people throughout its editions, later introducing the Gene Stealer cults in 1990. And as Games Workshop headed into the 1990s, Warhammer would continue to grow in success and therefore become the greatest focus of the company. It's also worth noting that from here on, Games Workshop kind of stopped being the small company it was only a few years back, and would instead begin its
The Kill
rapid
Bill
ascension
song?
into a true corporation. It's for this reason that details begin to get a bit sparse and harder to find to see exactly what events were going on behind the scenes, but I'll do my best to cover some of the major releases or events that occurred. The first major event that would take place in the 90s would be the leaving of chairman Brian Ansell. In 1991, Ansell would leave Games Workshop to its new chairman, Tom Kirby. Now, Brian hadn't always been a beloved part of Games Workshop by everyone. There were some previous protests on his focus on miniatures and some of the changes he made to White Dwarf, as well as his frequent and repeated leavings of the company, but Brian was one of the last figureheads for the company that really made Games Workshop, and by all accounts was considered to be incredibly talented. He's a name often cited as the creator of Warhammer, and it was his ideas that would get the franchise started after his return to the company. He would eventually say he left the company to work on his own historical miniatures at his company War Games Foundry. He would also cite his desire to build a family and have children. And unfortunately, as I was writing this part of the script for the video, I found out that Brian passed away only a few days ago, on December 30th of 2023. So, rest in peace to a legend, as without him, we wouldn't have Warhammer.
The guy with the cool hair.
His successor, Tom Kirby, would unfortunately go on to be fairly disliked by the community for some of his baffling takes on things such as market research and the company as a whole, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Leadership aside, the 90s would be filled with different board games and game systems released for Warhammer within the 40k and fantasy setting. And honestly, if I took the time to cover all of them, we might be here all day, so I'll quickly go through all the stuff I was able to find or felt was important. In 1992, we'd see the first release of the first ever Warhammer video game, Space Crusade, the game being a faithful copy of Games Workshop board game of the same name. In 1993, the second edition of Warhammer 40,000 would be released.
Wasn't XCOM like something to do with Warhammer originally? Wasn't it like a Warhammer fan game or something like that?
Seeing major changes to the tone of the franchise and becoming
Maybe I'm
more
thinking the other way
pessimistic and grimdark like we know today with the help of Andy Chambers. 1993 would also see the release of Jervis Johnson's Horus Heresy.
This art is kind of important because the artist is supposed to be Rutger Hauer. I've heard from a million different people that's who this is supposed to be. This is not a good version of it. This is like a fucking crispy version, but
A board game that recreated the invasion of Horus versus the Emperor of Mankind on Terra. 1995, Andy Chambers and Jervis Johnson worked together to make the first ever iteration of Necromunda, a skirmish game where rival gangs and factions competed on the industrial hive world of Necromunda. 1997 would see the Sisters of Battle, or Adeptus Sororitas, hive world. Necromunda, a skirmish.
This like polished blue metal, like bolt gun metal, that was such a cool look in the Necromunda, like call it the hazard science and stuff like that. It's so much darker and dirtier now, which makes sense, but damn, it looked so fucking cool. It was very bright, punk colored.
Game where rival gangs and factions competed on the industrial hive world of Necromunda. 1997 would see the Sisters of Battle, or Adeptus Sororitas, receive their first miniatures for 40k, with the third edition of 40k releasing in 1998.
I always love this cover for, this is like the box set for what, like 3rd, 4th edition or something. Those like chaplains.
Which would feature 2 brand new Xenos races, the Drukhari, or Dark Eldar, as well as the Necrons. Forge World will also be officially founded this year after Games Workshop had terminated the contract they had previously had with the company Armorcast, which helped to make large-scale resin miniatures. 1999, Battlefleet Gothic will release a game system that featured fleets of giant ships from opposing.
I fucking love the idea. What is it? Aeronautica Imperialis? I don't know if it's like the same idea, but this is such a cool version of Warhammer. I love the ships and stuff. I know there's actually like video games for this one too that are pretty good.
Factions fighting over their battles across the vast void of space. The fantasy skirmish game Mordheim would also be released this year, offering a detailed campaign system that is still beloved by people to this day. After Y2K didn't like blow up the planet or whatever, Games Workshop continued to grow their brand, and the 2000s would be a time in which Warhammer, particularly 40K, would begin to reach new heights of popularity. 2001 would be a huge year for Games Workshop. This year would see the introduction of the Tau to the 40K setting, a race of blue alien people who rode around on big old Gundams, appealing to a very different audience as compared to the previous 40K miniatures, but of course simultaneously was hated by others existing fans. Honestly, in retrospect, these blue rootin' tootin' samurai warriors were a footnote on the real success of this year, the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, also known nowadays as Middle-earth strategy.
Yeah, this is still going. They still are producing models for this range. This is insane that they still make new Middle-earth minis. That's insane.
Battle game. This game system, along with its following editions, would be released alongside the movies in theaters at the time, with the first edition launching around the time of the release of The Fellowship of the Ring, which, as many people know, would go on to be a hugely successful trilogy of movies, and therefore only brought more attention to the game system as well as other Games Workshop products. 2003 would see the return of the Horus Heresy game system, but no, not that one. Or this one. No, this Horus Heresy was a card game, and since has been kind of forgotten. But Epic Armageddon was also released this year as a follow-up to Epic 40K, and featured a believed to be well-received system of open development with a set of test rules released to the community before they were officially rolled into the main rules, allowing for community feedback before a possibly catastrophic change was implemented. 2004 would be the year that the 4th edition of 40K would launch, along with a video game that would become so beloved and successful it even saw people who had never heard of the franchise becoming 40K fans. Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War, an RTS game that is very fondly remembered not just in the Warhammer community, but the wider RTS community as well. Jumping forward, 2007 would see the release of Aeronautica Imperialis, which is conceptually similar to Battlefleet Gothic in the sense that they both focus on flying crafts, but this one was much more focused on standard aircraft as opposed to the giant hulking spaceships present in Battlefleet Gothic. In 2008, we'd see the Games Workshop attempt to cash in on the success of the MMO genre with the release of Warhammer Online: Age of Reckoning. Published by EA and developed by Mythic Entertainment, the game would unfortunately end up failing as yet another one of the victims to the Titan World of Warcraft, but from what I've heard from everyone, it was a fairly well-made game, and there are still some efforts made to resurrect it, with efforts in the community to make private servers. 2009 would see the release of Dawn of War 2, which unfortunately for some people did not live up to the first game, cutting out the base building feature while also having things that players had issues with, but it was still overall successful and some players praised these changes. 2010 would see the 8th and final release of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, the game that started the franchise in its entirety. Although it would only be officially discontinued in 2015, it was around this time that the seeds of an unfortunate collapse of the fantasy setting were being sown, which we can discuss more in depth here shortly. In 2011, Warhammer 40K Space Marine would be released by THQ, a third-person action shooter that is still widely beloved today, with the sequel hopefully coming out soon.
Yeah, it's like in a month.
In 2014, Warhammer 40,000 would introduce the Imperial Knights as a playable faction for the game, and shortly after this announcement, 7th edition would be launched. 2015 would be one of the wildest years Games Workshop would ever have. The 7th edition of 40K would see the release of the Adeptus Mechanicus, as well as updated models for Harlequins. But that would inevitably be dwarfed by the bigger drama that was unfolding behind the scenes in front of players' eyes, when Warhammer Fantasy's battles would abruptly come to an end and be replaced with Warhammer Age of Sigmar in 2015. There was never an entirely solid reason as to why Fantasy's end times would inevitably occur, but there was a lot of speculation rooted in some factual information that the community was able to use to hypothesize about what really happened. One massive issue that Warhammer Fantasy setting had, at least from the perspective of Games Workshop, was that many of the ideas and names present in the setting were not copyrightable, which is no surprise considering their initial inspiration for the world of Warhammer Fantasy was heavily inspired by Tolkien. There was also a growing discontent that would be seen over the previous few years, with Games Workshop attempting to twist the arms of its player base to buy newer.
Is that not a Vinny clip?
about what really happened. One massive issue that Warhammer Fantasy setting had, at least from the perspective of Games Workshop, was that many of the ideas and names present in the setting were not copyrightable, which is no surprise considering their initial inspiration for the world of Warhammer Fantasy was heavily inspired by Tolkien. There was also a growing discontent that would be seen over the previous few years, with Games Workshop attempting
I feel like I saw this happen. No?
to twist the arms of its player base
Maybe not. I don't know.
to buy newer models and factions, with increasingly higher prices to little success. Many players content to just keep their older armies and models. Although never confirmed, it was said that Space Marines alone were outselling the entirety of the Warhammer Fantasy range. This was only worsened by GW and Chairman Tom Kirby when in 2014, in a public annual report of the company, Tom Kirby showed a lack of acknowledgement of the real threat that 3D printing was soon posing to their company and proudly stood behind the fact that Games Workshop did not need to do market research. In a desperate attempt to revamp the fantasy setting, it was entirely killed and Age of Sigmar was born in its place. Age of Sigmar, despite GW's best intentions, did not solve the issues that Warhammer Fantasy had and instead resulted in new problems taking their place, with people criticizing the rules changes, destruction of the old world, and replacement of certain factions within the game. Although AOS has a more positive reputation now, at the time the changes were extremely jarring for fans of fantasy. All in all, 2015 would be a bit of a mess, but as it stands now, AOS has now been more embraced by the community. In 2016, we would see the release of the Genestealer Cult as a playable faction in 40k, as well as the new game system Kill Team being released, a new skirmish game for the 40k setting. As for the now defunct fantasy setting, Total War Warhammer would
Kill
be
Team
released.
fun?
Only a year later,
like that
somewhat surprisingly, Total War Warhammer 2 would be released to great success.
Total
in
War
2017.
Warhammer is so fucking
As a follow-up to the somewhat divisive Dawn of War 2, Dawn of War 3 would be released in April of this year, which was received even worse than the first two games in the series. It would also be this year that Chairman Tom Kirby would step down, to many people in the community's glee. Necromunda Underhive would be a return to the Necromunda setting for previous fans, with the new rules and newly updated gangs for the skirmish game releasing this year. If that wasn't enough for the sci-fi Warhammer fans, we would also see the release of the Adeptus Custodes, with the first ever Loyalist Primarch returning to the setting after the aftermath of the Horus Heresy for Brute Gilliman. On top of this, 8th edition of 40k would be announced, bringing Death Guard as a separate playable faction for Chaos Space Marines. 2018 would similarly see the Thousand Sons split off from the Chaos Space Marines with their own playable faction, and the beloved game developed by Bulwark Studios Mechanicus would be released. With Age of Sigmar being even further fleshed out, this new setting was being built up into an even more acceptable state in the eyes of the community, with 2019's Warcry being released the following year. Warcry essentially serving as the same role as Kill Team does to 40k, but for AOS, both skirmish games. Yeah. A few more things happened over the past few years, like the launch of the Leagues of Votann in 2022, finally bringing Dwarvenkin back to the 40k setting after being abandoned in the second edition of the game, with Angron's World Eaters splitting out their own army in 2023, which would be followed up by the release of 10th edition, where we'd finally see Games Workshop make rules free and publicly available to read and view, only to snatch them away and lock it behind a paywall. But hey, it's a step in the right direction, I suppose. For fans of the old fantasy setting, Old World finally has some pre-orders out for its new box sets, bringing back square bases and the solely missed
want to play
Tomb
Old
Kings.
World.
And yeah, that was a lot. Overall, Games Workshop has done a lot over the past 50 or so years since its inception back in the flat of Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson, and John Peake. Honestly, probably too goddamn much. I don't think you guys want to know how many tabs I have open right now. Despite the criticisms we might have for Games Workshop and some of the choices they've either made with lore, game systems, or models, I think we can all agree that despite its flaws, it has a special place in our hearts. At least I'm hoping it does if you've watched this whole fucking video. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this was a lot to cover. And trust me, I know there's some things I missed. This video would have been way longer if I had wanted it to, but I don't have the patience to cover all those nitty-gritty details. And I'm sure you don't really have the patience to listen to it. But hell if I know. If there's something I missed or researched incorrectly, feel free to let me know in the comments. There's nothing wrong with adding to the discussion. And with this video, I really wanted to try to focus on the beginnings of the company and where certain parts of Warhammer began. So I hope you got what you were expecting. Special thanks, of course, to my wonderful patrons who make videos like these possible. Mads, Dave the Unknown, Griff, Einhard Anderson, Turmeric.
Pretty informative. Check it out. There's a link to that video. I knew, like, it was kind of a crazy story. I didn't realize how many twists and turns were in there, man. It's crazy. Skaven had a rule where if you won the game, if you rolled a 13 on 2d6 AOS won. What the fuck? That's so fucking stupid. What is that, like 3% chance? That's like way too big. Stupid. Don't. Yeah, but couldn't you just like use like some skill to like add to your dice roll? Isn't that like most of what Warhammer is? It's like +1 to this roll. I know that's weird. I do like the idea of trying to introduce some of that stuff into it, like a little fun RP, but I hate dumb like little ways that people can like almost like basically cheat to win a game sometimes. If during your hero phase you pretend to ride an imaginary horse, you can re-roll failed hit rolls for Rune Fay. Yeah, that's fucking so goofy. It's funny. It is pretty funny. But yeah, trying to get back into the game. So I'll probably be talking about it a little bit. And check out some other things. I was saying to check out this trailer before. This is.
Warning. Viewer
Is it like a game,
discretion
I
is
think?
advised.
A movie or show? Or maybe an analog horror thing? Gameplay.
Hello and welcome. Your safety is our priority. As you embark on your experience, please take note and remember these few tips to ensure a safe and pleasant journey. Stay calm and composed. Panic can cloud your judgment and disorient you. Take a moment to take a deep breath, relax, and continue along your journey. Use your light source to help you navigate through the experience. Doing this ensures that there are no unwanted surprises and keeps you fully aware of your surroundings. Avoid making eye contact with any unfamiliar faces. This is mandatory, and failure to do so will result in an overwhelming and
Oh yeah, that looks crazy. It's very real looking. Familiar place. The Yoda. Yeah, it looks like you're playing as a kid. Yeah, all the points that's working. That looked cool. I'm excited to see this genre keep changing and adding new things to it. This video is unavailable. That's the same thing. I think this was what we just watched.
Warning. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's actually really funny. It's kind of funny. All right. Yeah, I don't have anything else crazy for Warhammer stuff to look at this moment. So much good lore videos and stuff too, like thousands and thousands of hours. I'll have to look up a little bit more. Oh, you know what was really cool, though. This is one of the games that got me into it, too. I had kids that were like older than me as friends when I was younger, so they were into Warhammer and kind of got me into it. I remember going over their house and they had this on their mom's computer. This game was so sick. I had it for PlayStation, but it wasn't nearly as cool as the PC version.
Prepare to die, Seraphine. Looks like Warpstone.
I like the way this Skaven talk.
Hated. Praise Yamo. That for me much. Good. Like hated.
Oh, it has all the FMVs here. This is such a fucking cool game. I wish they would do like a big remake of this. Like little FMVs. Game is Shadow of the Horned Rat, and you control like a mercenary band. And you have to like control entire units and regiments. It's pretty fun. Skaven Blight. Rat Blight. These little rats, man, they have like guns and shit. What is it doing? Bursting that axe?
Yes. Power. Cleanse. Burn. Acts of killing. Carnage. Yes. Cursed blade. Hot be pleased. That call will roll.
The fucking Skaven are so cool in this. He's got a TV he's watching.
Much power. Much killing. Slay and conquer. Slay and conquer.
Yeah, they cursed the axe, and it took control of the orc.
Yes.
The Skaven are controlling like a huge band of orcs in this game. They make them go fight the dwarves. It's a really good story, actually.
It's time to kill the ooze. All of them. The lot. Starting with them what lives on the borders, what thinks stays hard. Kill them all. No.
Kill them all.
Ergot no.
While you were away, the Skaven warband came to our town. They took Ilmarin, my advisor, and slaughtered anyone who resisted them. Though he hasn't been in my service long, he is a good friend, and I will pay well for his safe return. Please help me. We are on
I love the
routes from
dwarves here, too.
Karak Hern to Karazakarak. to inform our king of increased Skaven activity throughout the Black Mountains. We surprised the Skaven vanguard, but were soon outnumbered by the rat beast.
Like this scene takes place after like you're fighting the Skaven or whatever. No, you're traveling along and like you see a bunch of dwarves like being attacked by Skaven. If you choose to help them, they like join you. I don't know. It's pretty neat.
Your appearance
Yeah, like a
on their
dwarf
rear
regiment.
Was fortunate indeed, for are moving in force, and there is a great foreboding in their activities. Escort me back to Wiesenheim immediately. Who is this insolent? My true name is Saradan of the Black Mountains. My identity as Ilmarin no longer serves a purpose. An elf?
I love how Games Workshop worked the entire relationship between the elves and dwarves in Lord of the Rings, like into Warhammer. Is it just in everything? Do dwarves and elves just hate each other always? Is it all just from Lord of the Rings? Like, how did that even start?
Escort me to Carlson's Keep in Wiesenheim, where I can retrieve.
Just always
my
hate each
family
other.
sword. Its value is of great significance to us all. From there, we go to Lauren. The journey to Lauren is too dangerous at this time.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Used to make those fucked up YouTube videos. Held up. Shout out the Horned Rat videos.
Then we go quickly. Drill south wall. No, wrong. Drill east wall. Yes. East. Drill. Ah, boom. South and south wall. Crumble like dust. Easy, south. I drive, not you. You obey. Thank all say east. Thank all say we do. Drill east. Start now. Quick. Orcs not worry stunties for long.
I like that the Skaven are like making cars and shit. They talk like this, but they have like the most advanced technology in the entire world. They're making like fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vehicles down here. I love the night elves or the night goblins. Just making gremlin noises. So look how small that orc is. He's tiny. That's Karl Franz.
Our watchman gave us early warning of an orc force moving from the west. They were led by a huge one-eyed war boss. We made preparations, but they were too strong. However, they are bound for Zufbar. They will be held. Our fortress there is impregnable.
Impregnable. Well, can be shown Game of Thrones. Was that really all of the FMVs? What the fuck? Oh, those were from the PlayStation. Holy shit. That's why they looked like crap.
Anyone who resisted them.
For Zufbar.
That was the version I remember playing.
Heed the request. Due course.
Loading in
Carlson
has
this is a million times better.
2,000 crowns. That would help us to greatly.
So this was like the UI for your company. You would like click on the things here, like, oh, I want to look at my troops. It was such a cool little setup. And this is like the guy who tells you quests and stuff that are coming up.
Bolster our troops.
Kill them all! By the guts they all die!
Ungrun Dragonbane, Dwarf Lord of Zuthbar, welcome you. Dargrim has told me of your heroic deeds in the Underway, destroying the Skaven drilling machine.
The Underway.
For this, I'm most grateful. Let it be known that from this time on, you shall live as a comrade of the dwarves, a rare honour. Thanks for the delivery of these orc plans. I'll see you get paid for your troubles, my friend.
One of the slaves we rescued is a wealthy merchant. After a little persuasion, he expressed his gratitude to the tune of 200 crowns. He also told us of a new green-skin offensive led by a large black orc with one eye and a powerful axe. His followers grow in numbers daily as they move north from the Badlands. Our friends across the river are merely an enthusiastic scouting party.
This early warning of an orc. It will be.
Centuries ago, during our war with the dwarves known as the War of the Beard, an assault was led on our city of Athal Mariah. At the heart of the city stood a great menhir, designed to attract the winds of magic and focus them to Ulthuan, where they would be dispersed into the cosmos.
I like how the High Elves have a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean called Ulthuan. Just basically Atlantis.
At the heart of the menhir, which is needed to direct such magic. Before it was complete, Elior was struck down by dwarfen warriors, and the crystal shattered into 3 fragments.
That's pretty funny.
And our scepter contains one of these fragments?
I believe so. One piece was taken by each of the 3 dwarf lords from Karazakar.
The 3 dwarf lords. How long is this one going for? Holy shit.
Who's there?
Yo, Nuln is badass.
And the Grudgebringer mercenaries camped by the Nuln Road half a mile south of here. This is Engrol Goldtongue, an envoy of Ungrun, king of Zul.
So one really cool thing about the Warhammer Fantasy Empire is like they are kind of like the compatriots of Space Marines in that every city state has their own color scheme and their own like rules. So like Warhammer Fantasy Empire like is basically Space Marine chapters. So like Nuln, they wear this yellow tunic with like black on the outside, and they're like proficient in gunpowder and stuff like that. I don't know, it's just kind of like it's just Space Marines, like in Space Marine chapters. It's kind of funny.
And this is Seridan of the Black Mountains. We ask an audience with those whose voice would reach the Emperor's ear.
But it's not as interesting, I don't think. But it's also like historically based.
The Emperor will see us in 24 hours. We should use this time to rest and gather supplies. There are many armies for hire in a city like Nuln. You can review their credentials in the troop roster.
So you could like make up your own city-state. It's kind of neat.
My advisors have told me of your quest, Seridan. Rest assured, our decision will be made in due course.
I am descended directly from the bloodline of the High Elf Mage Elior of Tiranoc. During those times, we were pressed hard.
Repelling.
No, so that Emperor is basically like, you know, the corresponding character to the Emperor in 40k.
The elves have granted us safe passage to the Ugros of the heart of the forest.
Leave the woodmen to hunt.
I thought this game was just fucking sick when I was a kid. Look at those rats.
Kill. Quick.
The rats. There's other ones too, like Warhammer Dark Omen was another one. But it was fucking so hard.
The dead shall walk the earth.
So this is like the sequel to that game. Looks so much like that Diablo 1 cutscene trailer.
Unaware of the evil forces gathering in the southern lands, Commander Bernhardt's mercenary...
Oh, is that just all of them together? I do like the ghosts people they have in Age of Sigmar. I think that's a cool idea. Ghost army, the colors and stuff. Oh, like bright green. The fuck was he doing? Yeah, they got vampires. It's just basically Dracula down here. Pretty good use for skeletons. What? That was sick. Blows his fucking face up. Hell yeah. I gotta remember this video. Nagash. Sick ass necromancer. 3 leagues. The fuck are they going? Yeah. The guy's face is so fucking. I don't know. There's something about it. He looks like he's being reboot. Okay. You say so. Here we go. These videos are pretty funny too. They were a thing at least. There's better ones. Maybe not. That was one of the better ones. Maybe there's someone else who's making these. Yeah, just like Doom Stack videos. Here we go.
Let me get that heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat. Can I get that heat check, 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 let me get that heat check, heat check,
So Doomstack in Total War is just when you make like an army of just one unit. Just like a super powerful army, basically. No variety, just one really powerful unit. some dated memes.
Hi, doggy.
I'm dying. Help me.
Bop, 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 bop.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Like all of them. I don't think I've ever seen these ones. Which game was this?
Let's see where you was going.
You can see they kind of inspired that fan movie.
We go to this place. We make good fight. It's a war.
Well, non-standard Games Workshop logo. The horns. Yeah, epic 40K. 97. No, I thought it was way earlier. Strategic simulations are the same ones who made Shadow of the Horned Rat, I think. What happened to them? They must have made a lot of good games.
Commander Holt, you are to assist the new Lord Commander militant in retaining all the staff from the orcs. The 10th Ultramarines under the command of Captain Agrippa have been dispatched to the planet surface to secure a wide landing zone for the Imperial forces. May the Emperor be with you.
Very impressive, Agrippa. Your victory was decisive.
Agrippa?
It
That
was in
sounds
the Emperor's
familiar.
glory, Commissar Holt. We must now return to aid our brothers in their quest. Yes, of course.
Put your damn helmet on.
The warriors of the Mordian Iron Guard will provide the backbone to our initial assault. We move to take the spaceport in Kozlo. Reinforcement fleet Ravager approaches. The port is tactically crucial for their inclusion in our forces.
Lord Commander Militant is fortunate to have you as his right hand.
Looks like O'Brien, kinda.
No living commissar holds more respect.
Goodbye, Agrippa. May the Emperor guide you in your quest.
The same square head.
What do you want?
Yeah, this looks sick for 1997. Holy shit.
What?
Lord Commander, the recapturing of the spaceport at Kotzlev is complete. Troops from the Ravager fleet now join the campaign. I await your further direction.
Fuck. Orc fart. I guess it's supposed to show that there's like a battle happening. Maybe this is like a modern mod for the game. So when there's like battles happening that aren't depicted, it like shows it in a like little video or something in the mod.
Here's that.
The boss? Who is getting shot up?
I miss little videos like this from like Command and Conquer when you beat a mission or whatever, like your reward.
Command, this is Ivanovich. I found them. They're in Spetnoy Valley. They're establishing a Gargant construction site. They're looting what looks to be an ancient Cult Mechanicus fortress. An attack should be made now while the Gargants are incomplete.
Wonder if he was okay. Was that an orc like truck? What the fuck?
Lord Commander, I have something you should see.
This is Sergeant Matthias of the Mordian Iron Guard. We are currently over the Methuselah quadrant of High
really
City,
familiar.
Albania's external factory plateau. I've been observing a great deal of orc mech boy activity at this location. I thought it best you knew at once.
I fear the
Mech
orcs
boy.
may have discovered the
You can tell these
factory
actors
site
have never
belonging
said
to the
these words
Volestan
before.
In orc hands, it could supply them with tanks beyond number. If we act now and recapture them, we would have an invaluable asset.
Sir.
Hell yeah.
Identify yourself. I'm Commander Vishenka of the 9th Volestad Basilisks Regiment. I am Targada, of the Talan? Where
What?
are your troops? Awaiting reinforcements. The orcs captured what remained of our equipment after our battle at Malid. We have heard of this battle. You fought bravely. Join us. We shall help reunite you with your weapons. The orcs shall pay dearly for the insult.
We can be thankful the orc hordes.
I guess I kind of remember this. Oh yeah, they used to have like a bunch of different like Valhalla.
Indeed.
Imperial Guard and stuff like that. Like,
if they had discovered the
brigands.
true nature of this site, the loss to the Adeptus Mechanicus would have been historical.
Have your adepts been able to wake the Titan's crew from stasis?
The Emperor was with them. They all live. The bringer of tears will once again take its place in battle.
Oh shit. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Warlord Titan, assembled by the Mechanica.
Awaiting your command. Stormhammer ready for new orders.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on here.
Our weaponry is an unyielding hammer of woe.
Lord Commander Militant, forgive my intrusion, but I thought you'd like to know directly. Our victory here over the Orcs has allowed us to equip a number of artillery units. We're anxious and pleased to serve under you to free Volistad.
We've been trying to contact you for days. My other commanders have failed me. I shall allow you to redeem their honor. Only their incompetence and
So David Lynch's Dune too, looking.
setbacks.
Your setbacks, Pachenka, are due to your inadequacies as planetary overlord and military leader. Be thankful it is known that there is no disloyalty on your part. It will weigh in your favor, should you survive.
Who do you think?
That pompous fool. Oh, we'll have to move quickly to save any of his forces. The longer he's in control, the more troops we'll lose. We need every living man we can
Yeah, those
get.
games were basically like precursors to Command and Conquer. I love the orc.
Lord Commander, a space hulk approaches the system. It has been identified as the Sanguiner's Terror, missing from records for 7,800 standard years. Long-range probes show possible signs of orc constructs upon its surface. It is on an orbital
Orc Hulk. That's so funny.
with Volistad.
Awaiting instructions.
Schenker!
Ah! It's about time you got here. Thank you for your troops. I'll give you your orders in the morning halt.
Oh. Commissar, halt! I have heard the stories of your ineptitude and have seen the devastation it has brought. Your failure could cost the Imperium this world. You are no longer in charge. Choose your next words with exceptional care.
Maybe you had better take charge of the troops for a while, Commissar Holt. General Selenko here will be of great help to you, I'm sure.
That's a good slap.
Tech adepts tell me the Shadow Sword facilities are back in full operation.
With that, the Orc shall know death as a sea of steel.
The commissar
Ready to drop off
actor seems so familiar. I can't place him.
Bomber on the way. Acknowledge.
Yeah, I guess I thought people would get more. I don't know.
Your victory here has enabled us to re-establish our union with the Emperor. Our minds join and take form in the warp. Destiny shapes itself. Your ships are on their way.
Lord Commander, the Orcs have launched a massive counterattack. Reports are coming in of attacks all along the front. The Orc reserves are substantial. Heavy armor, gargants, shock troops. Their numbers are in their thousands. Reinforcements are needed immediately if we are to hold the line.
pretty sick, honestly.
Lord Commander, I have come to this place in order to speak to you where no others might overhear. I fear if Skrull is not soon defeated, you... Suffice it to say, I have served under 2 Lord Commanders militant on a single campaign in the past. I say this not to threaten, but to warn, my lord.
That thing's specially blasted. Store by here, ready to go.
What the fuck is happening?
So the rest, this is the biggest move. Death is coming, and it's big and metal.
The deathless Titanic ascends toward the Reaper to unleash the fury of the God Emperor. Confirming attack order. Destroying targets. Mega cannons charged and ready for war.
Guy kind of looks like he could be like Justin Timberlake's dad, grandfather. You don't get it, man. It was part of their vision. This is their movie. This is my project now.
Tell them to withdraw! All is lost. Volistad is falling to the Orcs. I must try and salvage what is left of our forces here. When we are ready, we will attempt to retake this planet. That, I suspect, will be under the authority of a more experienced Lord Commander Militant. Hail to the Emperor.
The system's destruction is imminent. The gunships are destroyed. We do not have the energy to return by teleport. Leave orbit. Now.
It is done, Captain.
Hail to the Emperor.
Damn. Oh, this is sick.
Commander, Skrull will threaten the Imperium no more. The Orcs are destroyed. Your leadership will be remembered when the name Volistad is spoken. Hail to the Emperor.
Hell yeah. That's great. We'll talk about Warhammer again soon. Maybe we can a bunch of us could play in like tabletop simulator sometime. Is that any good? I would love to have someone like walk me through